Welcome to the Life with Grief podcast. I'm your host, grief and transformational life coach and fellow griever, Tara Accardo. Hello, and welcome back to the Life with Grief podcast. I am so excited to dig in today's topic. It's very timely, very seasonal, but first, I just wanted to say to all of my US friends, if you are listening to this on the day that it drops, a very happy Thanksgiving to you. I just wanted to say that, acknowledge it, but also acknowledge that Thanksgiving can be so difficult. The holidays in general can be very difficult, and Thanksgiving is one of those big ones for us, where it is just such a time of togetherness and being thankful and grateful and all of the things, and we might be feeling anything but that. So I just want to acknowledge you today, but also just send you lots of warmth and just send my gratitude to you every single day, of course, but especially today on Thanksgiving. And also just a friendly reminder, that all being said, like I was just saying, holidays being difficult, don't forget, last week I dropped 5 episodes all on my sort of 5 days of holiday grief. So if at any point during this holiday season you need a little pick-me-up, you need some extra support, guidance, those episodes are there for you. So just a friendly reminder there. But for those who are tuning in on YouTube or watching the video version of this, you might notice I am in a slightly different setup. Very excited. I got a little bit more of a more comfortable podcast recording situation set up here. So I'm in a nice comfy chair. I am in very relaxed clothes. It is a no makeup day for me. My hair is still wet from my shower this morning. It's that kind of day, you guys. Okay, this is like my fall winter vibe right now. But all that to say, I really want you to just relax and take this episode in, and especially if this is something that you're struggling with, I hope today just brings you a little bit of comfort, and just know that so many of us deal with, spoiler alert, seasonal depression and just some seasonal blues. And I am thinking of all of you today. This is really the perfect day to record this, at least here in California. It is actually miserable today. Not that it's snowing here, but it's very rainy, very gray. We've seen no sun today, and so I couldn't think of a better time to record this episode. And thankfully I've got some lights here to give me some false sun. But all jokes aside, this is a serious topic, and it's one that I was really looking forward to covering because I just really want to help in any way that I can. So today we are diving into a topic that, like I said, affects so many of us this time of year, and that is seasonal depression. And as the days grow shorter and colder, it's very common for feelings of sadness, fatigue, and even some hopelessness to creep in. But in saying that, especially because this is the Life with Grief podcast, if you are already navigating some grief on top of that, that can feel like an added weight on top of everything else you're going through. But there is some good news here. There are tools and strategies and some tips that I have for you today that can help you cope and perhaps even find some moments of light, literally and figuratively, during this, again, literally darker season of life. So let's take it a step at a time. Let's talk about this together and explore what seasonal depression actually is, why it impacts us, and what you can do to navigate it with some care and compassion for yourself and whatever situation you are coping with right now. So let's just start off by kind of naming the experience and what it is that we're talking about here. Seasonal depression, also known as Seasonal Affective Disorder, or SAD, which you might hear me refer to it sometimes in this episode, so just a heads up. This is a type of depression that's linked to changes in the seasons. And it's most common, of course, during the fall and winter months when sunlight is scarce or almost non-existent for some of us, depending on where you are in the globe. But some people also experience it during other times of year too. I always think that's worth noting because a lot of us don't think that or wouldn't think that. For those of us who are grieving, though, seasonal depression can act kind of like a magnifying glass, really. The lack of sunlight, the colder weather, the social pressures of the holiday season can really intensify feelings of loneliness and sadness. And what's important to understand is that seasonal depression, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. It is a psychological and physiological response to changes in your environment. So it's very normal, it's very natural. Your body is responding to lower levels of sunlight, which can disrupt your circadian rhythm, lower your serotonin levels, and decrease melatonin production, which is what the sun can give us. So these changes affect your mood, it affects your energy, and even your ability to sleep. I don't know about you guys, but this is also partially because I have a young infant daughter. But when we turn the clocks back an hour, ever since then, getting up in the morning, oh my God, you guys, it feels like I am getting up in the middle of the night. I absolutely hate it. I really wish we could just get rid of the clocks changing altogether. That's a podcast for another day. But seriously, the getting up when it's dark and it getting dark earlier, I talk about it with colleagues of mine. I talk about it with friends and family. It's such a hard thing to adjust to. Some of us never fully adjust to it. I personally am of the belief I like seriously don't. Every single morning still feels like pulling teeth to get up. And it takes me a minute. It takes me longer to kind of get with the program than during the spring or summer. But acknowledging what you're feeling is crucial. So just like I did, I am naming the experience, even though I am not, I want to just preface this, I am not currently suffering from seasonal depression. I can definitely feel the effects though of it. And I am definitely a person that likes to be outside. I like to go on walks and everything. And sometimes by the time that I'm done working or doing whatever I'm doing, it's already dark at like 4:30 or 5 o'clock. So it's crazy. And it's just the hardest adjustment for so many of us. But here's the thing, and the reason I bring that up is because instead of brushing it off as like just the winter blues, really reflect on this and think about it and think about if it feels a little bit worse for you and give yourself permission to recognize that this is a real and very valid experience. And especially if you're grieving too, the weight of what you're feeling, it's not imaginary. It is part of how your body and mind are processing both the season and your grief. So some symptoms of seasonal depression or SAD, you might know these well if you're going through this, is low energy and fatigue, sadness or hopelessness, difficulty concentrating, increased sleep actually, because again, the light, it can really mess with us. So sometimes that makes us want to sleep longer or kind of feel lethargic. Or of course, on the other side of the coin, sometimes that means insomnia for some of us. There can be changes in our appetite. Oftentimes, we might crave more carbs this time of year, loss of interest in activities that you once enjoyed, and even some social withdrawal or isolation. And I bring some of these things up too, especially because, like I was saying, with grief, which is already so heavy and so dark, we might already be feeling some of these things, but then with the change of the season and everything that comes along with that, it can really, like I said, be magnified. It can really make it worse for us. So it's a really, really important time to keep checking in with yourself. We'll talk about some tips and strategies that I have here for you, but just checking in with yourself throughout the day and, make sure you're asking yourself like, okay, how am I feeling? What do I need today? What do I need to, help myself along and make myself feel a little bit better? So I just want to throw that out there. Have all the grace and patience in the world with yourself. Okay. So let's quickly talk about how to better understand seasonal depression or SAD. There's a few things here that you can do to kind of, again, just get curious, get to know it. Number one, track your patterns. If you notice that whatever symptoms you might be feeling occur during certain seasons or maybe even certain times of day or whatever it is, it could be related to SAD or just these, again, changing weather conditions. So again, journaling can help identifying patterns. If you want to just write this down on your notes app or something like that on your phone, or just make a mental note and be aware of it. And let's say there's maybe a certain time of day where you find yourself struggling a little bit more, then make a note of that and maybe do something kind of specific around that day to kind of help you through it. Maybe I always want to be cautious with caffeine intake, but maybe enjoy another small cup of coffee or something like that. or, you just have like a little bit of a treat that day, or you journal, or, you go for a walk, you do something to kind of, help you through that sort of lull in the day. Another one is biological connection. So understanding that SAD it's not just feeling down, quote unquote, but it is actually tied to your body's chemistry. Make a concerted effort to get that sun and, get out for a walk that day or whatever it is through whatever light source you can get it. You will realize that there could be a shift in all of this that you're feeling. So again, just remember that the physiological and the psychological effect that all of these things that come along with this particular season can have on us can really wreak havoc on sort of everything. So I think it's really important for you to identify what part about it is like especially kind of tricky for you, and that's how you can tailor what you do to sort of combat it and make it perfect for you. So also, number 3 on my little list here is cultural impact and location. So it's probably no surprise that SAD is more common in areas with shorter daylight hours or just more frequent overcast weather. Your location does play a role in this. I actually have a friend out in Norway, and she tells me about how they go for months sometimes with like very little sunlight, or there's a lot of sunlight, and depending on what time of year it is, and it can really mess with them. So again, depending on where you are, these are the things that you have to keep in mind. And it is so important to kind of mentally prepare for that. And if you couldn't mentally prepare for it before the clocks changed or before the sun started going down so much earlier, there's no bad time to start taking care of yourself and start putting some things into place that can ultimately help you through this a little bit better. So that being said, why is it so important to cope with seasonal depression? I mean, first of all, the word depression is in there, right? So none of us, hopefully, ideally, right, want to feel any semblance of depression. So of course, you may or may not be wondering, like, why should I bother with coping? Can't I just wait for the season to pass? My friend, I would say no. While it is true that the seasons will change, and as it gets warmer and as it gets lighter, that does help many of us. But not addressing seasonal depression can lead to a cycle of worsening symptoms. And I don't say that to scare anybody. I don't say that to fearmonger. But basically, when you kind of like go without treating it, it can impact a lot of aspects of your life, your relationships, your physical health, your ability to engage in life. And grief already can do that. So if you are grieving and you got SAD or whatever level that is for you on top of it, think about the impact that can make. And it's not to put more pressure on you, but it's like, that's what I'm here to help you through in this podcast. We want to live our most beautiful, fulfilling, and happy life, right? Especially after loss. So there's no bad time. There's no reason that should not be a priority. You are always a priority. Okay, so remember that. And also remember that coping isn't about pretending like everything is fine or forcing yourself to be happy. It's giving yourself tools to manage this experience, your grief, the seasonal depression, whatever it really is that's getting to you, finding those moments of relief and creating a space for healing, which is a continuous journey, even in the midst of the heaviness. If you feel you're needing some relief from grief, ways to manage stress and anxiety, and a tool that gives you a dose of hope moving forward, listen up, because this is for you. My 14-day Relief in Your Grief experience brings you powerful, impactful, bite-sized daily content alongside the perfect meditation. One of the biggest struggles I hear from my members and clients is that they sometimes just need some relief from the stress, sadness, and pain that grief and loss can cause. And this can pop up at any time, right? But here's the thing. So many people are kind of lost and unsure about where to start doing this. And this can feel like a huge thing to tackle when we're overwhelmed. So we are doing it together, and we're starting with just 14 days. Give me 2 weeks and I will help you begin to take that anxiety, heartache, and anguish and turn it into peace, clarity, and hope as you move forward. You have nothing to lose by joining, and it's all less than $40. I have no doubt these 14 days will be an inspiring, uplifting, and perspective-changing experience for you. Learn more and join through the link in the show description. And think of it this way. Just as you would wear like a coat to protect yourself from the cold, right? Coping strategies with this are kind of like layers of emotional warmth and protection. They don't make it go away, but they help you get through it without freezing, right? So, and think of our grief that way too. It's not that we're trying to completely just fix the problem and throw a Band-Aid on it and get through it only to get iced out later on. Like, no, that's not going to be effective, right? We need to really take it a day at a time, a step at a time. So that's what we're doing. So that being said, let's get into some just very high-level coping skills for seasonal depression. Again, this could be a much bigger conversation, but as with every episode here on the podcast, I would be remiss if I didn't leave you with at least some things that you can put into action right here, right now, as you listen to this episode or as you journey about your day after. And I want to help you however I can. Number 1 is light therapy. So again, you guys, very overarching conversation today. Feel free to just Google this if you want more information. But light therapy is one of the most effective treatments for seasonal depression. A light therapy box can mimic natural sunlight, which helps regulate your circadian rhythm, like we were talking about earlier, and boost those serotonin levels. That being said, if you cannot or don't want to invest in a light box, that's totally fine. Really just try and spend some time outside during daylight hours. Even if it's cloudy, you're still getting all the benefits, right? And if nothing else, just some freaking fresh air from the confines of your office or your house or wherever you're at. So that exposure to that natural light, even briefly, it can really make a difference. And sometimes we don't even know how badly we need it until we get it. Again, even if it's cloudy. And I understand if it's raining, if it's snowing, it might be freezing. I mean, I understand it might not be comfortable. Even 5-10 minutes, you guys, something is better than nothing. So I really, really recommend that. And best part of going outside, it's free, right? So definitely light therapy, best possible strategy and tool I can give you. Number 2 is establishing a routine. I have a whole episode on establishing a routine and the importance of it, especially as we're grieving, in episode 38. So definitely go check that out because I don't want to belabor this too much. But the importance of a routine here is that seasonal depression often brings a lot of fatigue and a lack of motivation. So creating that daily routine can give your day a lot of structure and purpose, and frankly can sometimes even give us something to look forward to. So start small here. Wake up at the same time each day. Don't let yourself oversleep. Of course, if you need a little extra sleep, if you were struggling with getting to sleep that night, I mean, do what your body needs and what you feel is best. But that can be really helpful, getting up at the same time, going to bed at the same time, making sure you have regular meals. Make sure you're eating enough. Of course, being careful not to overeat. This is not a weight thing. It's just something that I think so many of us end up kind of struggling with. We tend to overeat in the colder months and around the holidays and everything. My rule of thumb, it's all in moderation. Again, you guys, not for weight. It's just how that can make us feel. But those foods that are inherently kind of, quote, not good for us can make us feel really sluggish, things like that. So we don't need to feel more sluggish than we're already feeling, right? So again, just making sure you just eat your regular meals, eat good meals, lots of veggies, fuel, good carbs, things like that, and just carving out those moments each day for self-care and things that bring you some joy. Number 3 is moving your body. So kind of just alluded to this with taking a walk, but let's be real. Exercise, that can feel like a tall order when you are feeling low, whether it's because of seasonal depression or your grief or a mixture of both. But even just gentle movements, even if it's like indoors, maybe it's yoga, stretching. Maybe it is going for a quick walk. It's to get those endorphins and release those endorphins, and it will ultimately improve your mood. It truly will. And again, the goal, it's not to get fit. It's not to lose weight unless you want it to be. You do you. That's not me imposing that on you though. What it is it's to help your body and mind feel a little lighter, feel a little more upbeat, little skip in your step. So just some things to think about, but definitely move that body of yours. All right, number 4, stay connected. Seasonal depression and grief often tempts us to isolate, but connection is a really, really powerful antidote. Call a friend, join a support group. Mine is here for you. Everything I offer through the podcast and at Losses Become Gains, it's all here for you. Maybe even write letters or holiday cards to loved ones that you're missing, especially if you are grieving someone this season, right? If in-person connection feels too overwhelming, which I totally get, consider virtual communities or just, even if it's like a text-based support group just to start. Just something, just having some people in your corner that you can go to, whether it's to have a more kind of serious talk and something you need to work through. If in-person connection just feels too overwhelming right now, there are virtual communities, text-based support groups. There's ways that we can approach these things where it's a little more palatable and it's a little more like baby steps, So, but again, try not to self-isolate too much. That human-to-human connection, especially in person, if you can muster it, very, very important. It really does kind of bring you back to life a little bit. Number 5 is just creating some cozy rituals for yourself. So just finding small ways to bring warmth and comfort into your daily life, so important. So, around my house, I light candles. I make sure I have enough lights on. I sit sometimes near a window or near some sun if I can, if it's coming through. I make coffee every morning. Sometimes I have tea at night, decaf tea, okay? Whatever it is that calls to you. Maybe you create a playlist of music that is soothing to you or, just bring some joy to your day. Whatever it is, these rituals can remind you that you can create little moments of peace and happiness for yourself, even in a season that feels very difficult and it just will not let up. That heaviness will just not let up. It can, I promise you. It's all about finding the things that work well for you. Number 6 is prioritizing rest and nutrition. So again, touched on this a little, won't beat a dead horse here, but that lack of sunlight, it can really impact your energy and your sleep. I definitely feel this more in these months. My energy is it just frankly isn't what it is in the spring and summer. And that's okay. That's super normal. Prioritize rest when you need it. But like I said earlier, be mindful of not oversleeping. That can make you feel groggier. Make sure you are also nourishing your body with foods that are rich in vitamin D and omega-3s. So think salmon, eggs, leafy greens, things like that. That really will make a difference if you like those things and are open to having them. And also, this goes so overlooked, but I feel like I got to say it, staying hydrated. That also helps maintain your energy, keeps your body going and healthy, like the temple that it is, right? Last but not least, I feel like I always have to say this one, seek professional support. If seasonal depression feels unmanageable or that mixed with your grief is just really just weighing you down in kind of a way that you're not comfortable with, reach out to a therapist, a counselor, a grief coach like myself. Sometimes it's just having someone to talk to or a community to talk to that can make all the difference. All right, so with my tools and tips and things out of the way, before we start wrapping this up, I wanted to just share a quick breathing exercise for grounding. When seasonal depression feels overwhelming, really grounding yourself in the present moment can help a lot. So a breathing exercise that I recommend is the 4-7-8 breathing technique. So basically the gist is that you can start off by finding a quiet space. You're sitting or you're lying down in a comfortable position. And by the way, you're welcome to do this now, unless you're driving or at work or somewhere. If you're with family on Thanksgiving, right? Come back to this later. This is a great breathing technique for any day, anytime. But basically, finding that quiet space, sitting or lying down, like I said, in a comfortable position. You close your eyes if that feels comfortable to you. And basically, you want to inhale really deeply through your nose for 4 seconds, filling those lungs. Then you hold your breath gently for 7 seconds. I know that can feel like a long time for some of us. I am not the best at holding my breath that long. But if you get enough air in those lungs, it should be okay for you to do. So you breathe in for 4 through your nose, hold gently for 7 seconds. And as you hold, you want to imagine maybe like a warm light filling your body, bringing you calm and comfort. Just imagine just this beautiful place of peace around you. And you hold that for 7, and then you slowly exhale through your mouth for 8 seconds. And as you're doing that, you release any tension, sadness. Make sure you really drop your shoulders when you do that exercise, and really just let all of that melt away. And just imagine that heaviness leaving your body with your breath. And you do this cycle 4 or 5 times, or as many times as you need to feel more grounded. And this exercise works really well because it slows your heart rate, it calms your nervous system, and it kind of just, like I said, brings you back to the present moment, which is where we need to live. And it's a very simple yet powerful tool that you can use whenever seasonal depression or even your grief can feel overwhelming, which I know can happen frequently, especially this time of year. So, all right. So just to wrap this up, I just want to remind you that seasonal depression and grief, yes, they can feel heavy. Yes, they can feel so dark and so painful and isolating and very lonely. But you are not alone in carrying this weight. There are tools, some of which I talked about today. There is support. There are people who care about you. I am one of them. And please just remember, we're all here for you. You do not have to navigate this alone. And I am just sending you a whole lot of warmth and love in this cool, dark holiday season. I know it's so difficult, you guys, but we are going to get through it together. All right. If today's episode resonated with you, I really, again, just encourage you to take just one step forward, whether that's trying the breathing exercise, whether that's reaching out to a friend and just doing that consistently, or just simply giving yourself permission to rest and get that vitamin D when you can. And remember that you are doing the best that you can, and that is enough right now as you are coping with everything that you have on your plate. All right. I invite you to share this episode with someone who might need it if you enjoyed it. And as always, I'd love to hear from you. So if this was helpful, let me know. DM me. My inbox is always open as well. And thank you so much for spending this time with me. Until next week, take care of yourself. Remember, you are worthy of love and light and healing and all of the most beautiful things, even in the darkest seasons. Literally and sometimes emotionally too. Okay? I will see you in the next episode. I am sending you a huge thank you for tuning into today's episode, my friend. I'm so grateful you're here and for the steps you're taking to heal your heart, open your mind, fulfill your soul, learn, grow, and evolve, and move through this crazy thing called life in big, beautiful, impactful ways. Visit lossesbecomegains.com for my blog, membership, more coping tools, ways to work with me, and so much more. And be sure you're following along on Instagram and Facebook at Losses Become Gains, and on Instagram and TikTok at Life with Grief Podcast. I love seeing new faces, meeting new people, hearing your stories, and supporting you however I can. Be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, and share this episode or this podcast with someone who could use it too. And remember to always keep asking yourself, how will I turn my losses into gains today? I'll catch you in the next episode.